of the area problems that you will see on the pre-assessment. Now we're going to move towards surface area. So we remember, first thing we have to do is we have to look and see how many bases does this figure have. It has 2 bases. It has this as a base, and then its other base would be up on the top here. And those bases always have to be parallel in order to be. So since it's a 2-base figure, we know that it's a prism. And then we look to see what the shape of the base is. Well, the shape of the base is a square. So this would be considered a square prism. Now we know that surface area of all prisms is going to be lateral area plus 2 times big B, which represents the base area. So my lateral area, remember on all prisms, lateral area is going to be the perimeter of that base times the height plus 2 times the base shape. The base shape is a square, so we put in the area formula for the area of a square. So my perimeter is the distance around the base. If this is my base in yellow, the distance around it is going to be 5 miles plus 5 miles plus 5 miles plus 5 miles. So my perimeter is going to be this, 5 miles plus 5 miles plus 5 miles. And then it's times the height. The height is the distance between the 2 bases. In this case, it's 8 miles. And then it's plus 2 times my base shape, my base area, which is S squared. My base is the square in the bottom. So S, a side, is 5 miles, quantity squared. So now we're going to start simplifying this. So 5 miles plus 5 miles plus 5 miles plus 5 miles gives me 20 miles. And we're going to multiply that by the height. And 5 miles quantity squared gives me 25 miles squared. 8 miles times 20 miles gives me 160 miles. And 2 times 25 miles squared gives me 50 miles squared. 160 miles squared, sorry, forgot that, square. 160 miles squared plus 50 miles squared gives me 210 miles squared. That would be the surface area of this square prism. The next figure, number 9, we got to pick our base. I'm going to pick a less traditional base. I'm going to call this my base, and then the parallel base is going to be up here. So that shape of my base is a rectangle. I see that it has 2 bases, 2 base shape, so we know that it's a prism. And the shape of the base is a rectangle. So this is a rectangular prism. So surface area of all prisms is going to be lateral area plus 2 big B, 2 base areas. My lateral area is still going to be the perimeter of the base times the height plus 2 times the base shape. Well, the shape is a rectangle. So we know the area for a rectangle is base times height. So now let's fill in the pieces of information. My perimeter around my base, the perimeter is 7 miles plus 4 miles plus 7 miles plus 4 miles. And I get that 4 miles from this because it's parallel to that. Remember, if we just move it, and it's the same place. So that's where I got that perimeter. So my perimeter is 7 miles plus 4 miles plus 7 miles plus 4 miles times the height. Now the height is the distance between the 2 objects, or the 2 bases, So that distance, that 4 miles, is my height. Height is always going to be the distance between the 2 bases. And then it's 2 times the base of the rectangle. So now we have to look at this rectangle alone, just this purple line. So the base is going to be 7 miles, and I'm going to multiply that by the height. This is the height of that rectangle, which is 4 miles. All right, so now let's do a little simplifying. 7 miles plus 4 miles plus 7 miles plus 4 miles gives me 22 miles. And we're going to multiply that by the height, which is 4 miles. And we have 2 times 7 miles times 4 miles, which gives us 28 miles squared. We're going to multiply 22 miles times 4 miles, which gives me 88 miles squared. And we're going to multiply 2 times 28 miles, which gives me 56 miles squared. 2 times 28 miles squared, excuse me. And then we have 88 miles squared plus 56 miles squared, which gives us a total of 144 miles squared. That would be the surface area of that rectangular prism. Number 10, how many bases? Well, let's find the base. So remember, these bases must be parallel. So the figure that I pick, if I pick this bottom triangle down on the bottom here, if I pick that, can I find a triangle that is parallel to it? Yeah, the top triangle would be parallel to that. So those are my two bases. So I know this is a two-base figure. So I know it's a prism. And then my base shape is a triangle. So this is called a triangular prism. Since it's a prism, surface area is always going to be lateral area plus 2 times your base area. Lateral area is always going to be the perimeter times the height plus 2 times the base shape. My base shape is a triangle. So the formula for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. All right, perimeter. What's the distance around my base? The distance around my base is 9 meters, 4 meters, and then 9 meters. So my perimeter is 9 meters plus 4 meters plus 9 meters. And I'm going to multiply that by the height, the distance between the two bases. 2 meters plus 2. Now my base of my triangle. So let's erase this because let's look at my triangle. And let's look at the bottom one. I'm going to look at the one at the bottom here. So these sides. If I took this side right here, I don't have a perpendicular height. I don't have a distance from the base to the top. So we can't use this bottom line as a base. What if I used, if we're looking at the bottom one, that's my base on the bottom. Do I have a distance from the base to the top that is perpendicular? Nope. So I need to use this line, which is 9 meters, because I have a perpendicular base from the bottom of the object to the top. So my base is going to be 9 meters times the height, which is 3.9 meters, divided by 2. That would be my base area. So let's start simplifying. 9 meters plus 4 meters plus 9 meters gives me 22 meters times 2 meters times the height. This is the perimeter. That's the distance around the base. Times 2. And then we have 9 meters times 3.9 meters, which is 35.1 meters squared, divided by 2. 22 meters times 2 meters gives me 44 meters squared. Let's do a little saving of time. 2 is in the numerator, 2 is in the denominator. They're going to cancel to make 1. So that leaves me with 35.1 meters squared. And 44 meters squared plus 35.1 meters squared gives me 79.1 meters squared. That didn't look like a point. Good. Now we have a cylinder. So let's take a little look-see at our cylinder. We have two bases, and let's do the bases. We've got this as one base, and we've got the other circle that is parallel to it as my other base. So it is two-base figure. So when we talk about circular bases, we call this a cylinder. And the base shape is a circle. So it's a circular prism known as a cylinder. It's not a circular cylinder because all cylinders are circular. We actually just call it a cylinder. And the surface area equals still lateral area plus 2 times the base area. My lateral area, instead of using the perimeter, because when we talk about circles, we're going to talk about it's the circumference times the height plus 2 times the area of my base. My area of a circle is pi r squared. So what is the circumference? Well, that's going to be 2 pi r is the formula for circumference of a circle times the height plus 2 pi r squared. So let's start putting in values. 2 times pi, we're going to use 3.14 times the radius, which is 12 meters, times the height, the distance between the two bases, 8 meters, plus 2 times pi, which is 3.14, times the radius, which is 12 meters, quantity squared. 2 times 3.14 is 6.28. 12 meters times 8 meters gives me 96 meters squared. 2 times 3.14 still gives me 6.28. 12 meters squared gives me 144 meters squared. 6.28, where are we? Here we go. 6.28 times 96 meters squared gives me 602.88 meters squared. 6.28 times 144 gives me 904.32 meters squared. Add those two values together, we get 1,507.2 meters squared. That would be the surface area of that cylinder. Now we move to single base figures. So how many bases? We have one base. So it's going to be either a pyramid or a cone. This is a, no, that's not a pyramid. And what's the base shape? The base shape is going to be a square. So this is called a square pyramid. Surface area of a square pyramid is still lateral area plus base area. Notice there's not 2 in front of it because we don't have 2 bases. We only have a single base. The lateral area is going to be, it consists of 4 faces, 4 triangles. So lateral area is going to be 4 times. Now let's think about the shape of that face on the lateral area. It's a triangle. So it's base times height divided by 2. And then my base shape is a square. So let's talk about the lateral area. We have 4 times the quantity, base times height divided by 2. So let's erase this. So what I see here is I have this triangle right here. That's one of the faces. I have another one right here. And then I have another one on the back side. The back side of that, back here. And then I've got one, that would technically be on the left side. And then I have one in the way back. So I have 4 triangles that are identical. So that's where my base and height. So the base of that triangle is going to be 7 feet. And the height, what we also is called slant height. The slant height is on the outer face. So my base of that lateral area is going to be 7 feet. The height is going to be 12.5 feet. And then divide by 2 because that shape is a triangle. Plus, now we're talking about the base, and that base is a square. So the area for a square is s squared. One of the sides is 7 feet, quantity squared. Now let's start simplifying. 4 times 7 feet times 12.5 feet is 87.5 feet squared divided by 2 plus 49 feet squared. That's 7 feet squared. Now let's do some quick math here. We can just divide, we can cross cancel the 4 in the numerator and the 2 in the denominator. So we get 2 times 87.5 feet squared plus 49 feet squared, and 2 times 87.5 feet squared gives me 175 feet squared plus 49 feet squared gives me a total of 224 feet squared. Because it's a square base, we're going to have 4 lateral faces. When we move on to this one, which is a triangular base, we're only going to have 3 lateral faces. So we have a single base. So we know that it's a pyramid. Did I spell pyramid wrong over on that other one? I did. Pyramid. Nice, Mr. Mac. Pyramid. You probably were thinking that. I knew it. And my base shape here, this time, is a triangle. So a triangle has 3 sides. So when I'm looking at my surface area equals my lateral area plus my base, my lateral area is only going to have 3 triangles. And then my base shape this time is a triangle. So my base shape, my base is this triangle. My lateral area is going to be this triangle, the top one. So let's fill in the pieces of information. So when I talk about my lateral area, I'm talking about the green. So the base of the green is going to be 8 miles. That's this one right here. I'm getting that from this piece right here. And then the height, that slant height, is going to be there because I'm talking about the lateral area. So 8 miles times 10.3 miles divided by 2 because it's a triangle. And now we're talking about my base. Now we're talking about this. So now I'm talking about this. What's that color? Let's talk about. Now I'm talking about this, and the base is in the bottom. So that's going to be the base of my base, and then the height of that is going to be that perpendicular. Because remember, the base is the bottom one. So my base is 8 miles times the height of that base is 6.9 miles, and then quantity squared. So let's simplify. We have 3 times 8 miles times 10.3 miles gives me 82.4 miles squared divided by 2 plus 8 miles times 6.9 miles gives me 55.2 miles squared divided by 2. Let's do 82.4 miles squared divided by 2 gives me 41.2 miles squared. And then 55.2 miles squared divided by 2 gives me 27.6 miles squared. 3 times 41.2 miles squared gives me 123.6 miles squared plus 27.6 miles squared for a total surface area of 151.2 miles squared. Good. All right, last one, number 14. So we have a cone, we have one base. One base typically is called a pyramid. I still can't spell pyramid. However, in this case, it's called a cone because the base shape is a circle. So we don't call it a circular cone, we just call it a cone. Surface area equals the lateral area plus the single base. Now this is where it gets interesting. The lateral area is pi RH. And then the base shape is a circle, so we're going to have pi r squared. So pi, we're going to plug in 3.14. The radius, notice they give us the diameter, so don't put 24 feet. It wants the radius, which would be 12 feet, times the height, and the height here is called the slant height, is 26.8 feet. That's the exterior slant, plus pi, which is 3.14, and the radius again is 12 feet quantity squared. That is a formula that you should memorize. So 3.14 times 12 feet gives me 37.68 feet squared. Nope, not squared because it's just feet and pi, times 26.8 feet plus 3.14 times 12 feet squared. 12 feet squared is 144 feet squared. 37.68 feet times 26.8 feet gives me 1,009.824 feet squared. And 3.14 times 144 gives me 452.16 feet squared. Add those together, you get 1,461.984 feet squared. Woo! Good luck. This is a long video. Come and see me during office hours or the extra help hours at 1 if you have any questions on these. Thanks for your time and for getting this far.